If you're sick of feeling overwhelmed and knackered all the time and a bit like you're just running on this hamster wheel and nothing's really helping and you don't really know where to begin, I want to share with you my morning routine and why it's a really important part of regulating my nervous system, which can help my hormones, my gut health, and my overall sense of joy. Plus, how a morning routine can be a really simple and great beginning step to incorporate a more slower living approach to just your whole life. Just fighting with a tree and then an insect. So let's be real, sometimes talking about a morning routine as a working mom and being a person on the internet can just feel like, I think anyway, I feel like people just get really annoyed at it. But I have to say, if you're feeling overwhelmed and just knackered all the time, and like you really want things to change, but you have so much information and you do not know what to change, and you have like 10 different options of stuff that would be helpful, but you haven't done any of it consistently, the first thing I would recommend you do that's going to help your hormones and your energy and that sense of overwhelm. It's getting a bit windy. Let's find a less windy spot. There we go. Just found a little woodland hideout by a river. Very nice. One of the first things you want to do is set your nervous system up for success. If you are really struggling with your health and you really want things to change, yet you cannot seem to make consistent change and all you're doing is just blaming yourself, I want you to start with this one thing. Now, what I'm going to do in the video is share with you the different ways what this looks like for me in lots of different ways, because it changes from day to day. You know, I have little kids, so like last night, for example, I was up in the night because one had done a massive poo explosion. That affects my morning. I don't do the same thing regimented every single day. So I'm going to share with you the tools that really help me. But the main thing is to start your day setting your nervous system up for success, because you will find once you do this, this will actually really impact your food choices and help with more mindful eating. It's also really going to help with things like energy, sugar cravings, and ultimately set the foundation for hormonal health, body composition, and gut health. Because when we have a morning routine, when we start the day intentionally, what we're doing is we're making sure we're not just starting the day riding this cortisol stress train. And most of the time people are waking up and either through social media, watching stuff, having screaming kids in their faces, a whole host, just thinking about work, going through their emails, writing to-do lists, they're immediately shifting into a more sympathetic nervous state. And the way you start the day, the tone that you set for the day really matters. So here are a couple of tools, options, rhythms, routines that I do in the morning to really help me reduce overwhelm, increase my mood and joy, and help me to really regulate my nervous system in the morning. So I always start with staying hydrated. I get a herbal tea or a drink or lemon water and chlorella. That's something I'm really into at the moment. And it's worth reiterating. My routine in the morning changes with seasons, with times of year, with ages of children, with how I feel, with what I've got going on. The main thing is that there's always something. It's like an anchor point to the start of the day. So I'll always make sure I go pee, go to the toilet, brush my teeth. I sometimes scrape my tongue. I get hydrated. I've been really into the last couple of months of having cacao. So I've been doing some lovely ceremonial cacao in the morning. I will often get the yoga mat out, and I'll often just take some time to do some yoga. But it's worth noting, I don't do the same thing every day. That doesn't work for me. I don't enjoy that. So this video, I'm like offering you the buffet, the smorgasbord of options for a morning routine, because I think maybe you're the type of person that needs to do the same thing every day, so you're not necessarily deciding. That's cool. Go with that. But with me, some mornings I go to the gym. Other mornings, like this particular morning that I'm recording this, I actually went for a long run. So it really does depend, but I think some sort of movement, be it gentle movement, can be really helpful. And I love doing yoga in the morning personally. Yoga is a great physical practice that's really about creating that stillness, that oneness, that union within your mind. And it also incorporates the breath. And it really is a way of moving the body whilst also keeping the nervous system in a more calm state. So, for example, when I go on a big run, my nervous system isn't in a calm state. It is in a more aroused, sympathetic nervous state. If I'm doing a really hard workout at the gym, same thing. So, I really try and make sure that in my mornings, I'm really prioritizing shifting my nervous system into a parasympathetic nervous state. So, even if I'm going to the gym, I'll take 5 minutes to do a meditation. If I'm going for a run, I'll make sure I really switch back. I do some stretching. I do a meditation before I go out. I sit with a cup of tea and stare into space. It's really important to actually focus more on the state that you're creating in your brain and biochemistry rather than I have to do this specific thing in order to have a good, air quotes, good morning routine. It's not about that. It's about supporting your biology. So, my typical morning routine starts with a big drink of something, either a huge herbal tea or, as you've seen on here, a big chlorella lemon juice salt concoction. Again, I don't always do the same thing every morning, but the principle is to make sure I'm getting really hydrated. Then I'll often have a cacao that's currently, what I'm really into. Roll out my yoga mat or, go to the gym potentially, but roll out my yoga mat. I do this probably most of the time. Take a couple of minutes, do some gentle stretches, listen to my body. Sometimes I do a more intense routine. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do 2 minutes. Sometimes I do 10 minutes. Sometimes I do 20 minutes. It really just depends on where I am in my cycle, how well I slept, and just what I need that day, what I need to feel good. A morning routine isn't about checking boxes, it's about creating more joy, more peace, more balance, more contentment, more beauty into your day. Or well, at least that's what it is for me. And when I can support and regulate my nervous system, then actually I know that I'm setting myself up for the day. I'm setting myself up for success. So let's talk about meditation. Most days, I am trying to take some amount of time, be it 4 minutes or 15 minutes, to meditate. Now, a lot of clients I work with, a lot of people I speak to tell me that they can't meditate, they've tried it, and it's not for them. So, a couple of top tips. Meditation is hard. And the harder you find it, potentially, the more you need to do it. And I say all this because when I started, I found it like excruciating. I would have rather sprint uphill than sit on my butt and try and be present with my mind for 5 minutes. But we know from research that it can be a really helpful way of supporting your nervous system and therefore your hormones, your energy levels, your sense of overwhelm, and your mental health. Also, with meditation, there's so many different types and free resources out there. So, I just want to encourage you to try it. Try it, ideally at the start of your day, even if it's just for 2 minutes. 2 minutes of mindful practice of just breathing in. And I'll put in the show notes or in the comment bits below some of the apps that I use that can be really helpful at helping me just to support my hormones and my gut health and my brain through some meditation. Now, if all of this just feels far too like Pinterest boardy for you and slightly unrealistic, the other thing sometimes I do, and this just happens because of life and being a parent and what life throws at you, is sometimes I just do tasks that need to be done that I want to do in the morning. So this is me just making some bread that I needed to do, and I'm just doing it in the morning with a bit of space and time, and I'm listening to something intentional. I think It's really easy to get bogged down and overwhelmed by all the details of, should I do meditation? Should I do breath work? What about yoga? Kezia does yoga. I read about journaling. I could do journaling. I could do vision boarding. I could do this. I could do this. I could go for a walk. I could go for a run. I could make herbal tea. I could have lemon water. And all of these things. And actually, you could get so overwhelmed. And most of the women I speak to are so overwhelmed. They're not information poor. They know there's stuff that would help them, but they're not able to do it because they're so tired and so overwhelmed. So if that's you, it's not necessarily about the thing you do. You don't have to do meditation. Meditation is really well researched and it's free and it works, but you don't have to do it. The most important thing here is to do something intentional that helps to regulate your nervous system. Maybe you make the kids pack lunches slowly in the morning before the chaos, where you can just breathe and listen to some affirmations or calming music or something that makes you really happy. I think just starting the morning slower, especially I find for me as a parent, is my morning can immediately start with requests, demands, tantrums, feces, all sorts of things. And for my nervous system to be regulated, for my hormones to be balanced, for my gut health to be switched on and optimal, for my body to shift out of survival mode and into thriving, I need these little pockets of slowness. So some mornings, that's like this morning, like I'm showing you here, is I'm making some bread. And total side note, a lot of you have asked for this gluten-free bread recipe. So the recipe is in the comments. If you want this recipe, I adapted it from another recipe. If you want this, it's in the comments. I make it a couple of times every week. And the mistake I don't want you to make with this is just thinking, oh, Kezia, this is like some nice optional extra. When I have the time, it would be good to start the morning relaxed. That would be nice. No, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the reality of your biochemistry, right? So these things that you say you want changed, the things that my clients are always talking to me, that people come to me for. I want better hormones, better perimenopause. I feel like I've gained loads of weight. I want my IBS to go. I want to not feel constipated, or I have crazy bowel movements. All of these things begin and are affected with the way that your brain signals to these systems and organs. If as soon as you wake up in the morning, you're frantic, chaotic, focused on productivity, then as soon as you wake up, your brain is signaling threat to all of these systems and to all of these organs. And those organs and everything else is going to respond accordingly, making cortisol, maybe making adrenaline, setting you up for the very thing you do not want. So this isn't about, well, it's nice for you, Kezia, that you can make the time. It's because I've shifted away from, oh, it would be nice, or it's relaxing to do. I've realized the biochemistry, the science of it, the research of it, the facts of it, and realized actually one of the most strategic things I can do to help change my biology is by regulating my nervous system, not just starting the day with coffee and chaos, and getting my nervous system, my cortisol, my adrenaline, all these other hormones ramped up. That does not serve me. That will not get me the things that I want. That is not going to help me to feel the way that I feel. And I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is we think that our emotions have nothing to do with our biochemistry, that how we feel emotionally and our cellular reality are these two different things when they are one thing. So if you're wanting less PMS, you need to support the signaling from your brain to your womb. You need to support that whole biological process. If you're wanting to get rid of IBS, then you are needing to improve and be really intentional about how you're signaling your brain to your digestive system and your stomach. And all of this has roots in nervous system regulation. But if you are not intentional and you live in the modern world and you're a parent and you are chronically sick and you maybe work a job and all of these things, if you're not intentional about this, it won't happen. Most of my clients don't feel emotionally stressed. They're not waking up frazzled, screaming, stressed out. They're not. Their stress has just become so chronic that it's normal. And the only way that we know they're struggling is through their symptoms, their hormones, their gut health, their fatigue, their feeling knackered all the time, their mood and mental health changes. So I know this stuff can sound optional or extra because it's like relaxing. So maybe ditch that way of thinking and really think about it as medicine for a healthy, thriving based biochemistry. This is about you being intentional and defining and taking ownership of the biochemical soup that your cells and organs live in the morning and throughout the day. And it's really important that you don't just let it happen, because everything in our culture, in our lives, is designed to keep you in a sympathetic nervous state. So if you don't intentionally counteract that, you're going to be on that hamster wheel, and that could be why you're struggling with how you feel right now. Just fighting with a tree, and then an insect came on the camera. So I will be brutally honest, as I always am. I don't always do this perfectly. My ideal is to have half an hour to 45 minutes in the morning, which I know is a stretch for a lot of you. So you don't need to start there. I often get clients just to start with like 5 minutes. And there's lots of different things you can do. So the main thing is pick one. If you don't know which one thing to do, begin with a gentle meditation and breath work. Start there. But it can make the world of difference. And I think a lot of the time, people are trying to work on their health and getting really stressed about it because they haven't set in certain foundations. And the way that you set the tone for the day, or set in a really practical sense, how you set your nervous system for the day really makes a difference for your energy levels, for the way your brain is messaging to your ovaries and your adrenals and all of these kind of things. And if you just start the day in chaos, then it's probably going to carry on in chaos. Chaotic food choices, chaotic other choices. You're not going to exercise. You're not going to take a moment to breathe. And so I think it is one of the most important things. And that's what I love about slow living and that whole approach, is that it might be you don't do anything specific, but you have a slower morning. Like you have some intention around that 5 minutes, making that cup of tea, staring out the window. You're just being intentional about it. And I think that's sometimes where people get overwhelmed, as they hear about journaling prompts and meditation and breathwork and yoga. And I like having lots of different things. That serves me. But you could also just do what you currently do with a bit more time. Now, the next question people often have is about getting up early and a resistance to getting up early. So if getting up early, I'm going to try and venture out into the wind. Not sure if this will work. There's a couple of reasons getting up early can be hard. Number one, you're having poor quality sleep, meaning you're not getting enough REM and deep sleep. That's always going to make getting up difficult. Number two, your cortisol awakening response is really sluggish. So this is especially if I have a client who's, it takes hours to wake up in the morning, or they need 2 coffees before they even feel slightly awake. That's probably their circadian rhythm. The cortisol awakening response is really skew-off, and we need to work on that. Number 3 is you go to bed too late, and you probably already know it. You don't need me to tell you that. And making sure you get enough sleep can make a world of difference. But also, I'm a morning person, and I like half an hour, 45 minutes. That might not be you. That's fine. So 5 minutes. Can you get up 5-10 minutes earlier? I think you can, especially if it's going to make a phenomenal difference to your hormones and your body composition and your food choices and your sense of joy and mood and energy throughout the day. So I hope that has been helpful. And if you are struggling with your energy, if you know your sleep quality is rubbish, if some of those things I just talked about, like cortisol awakening response, you're like, oh my goodness, that's me. Or maybe it's just something else entirely where you're like, no, I have too much joint pain, IBS, bowel issues, hormone issues. The way that you're going to make progress is by figuring out your root cause and then by taking strategic action on that root cause. So if you don't know what your root cause is, book your root deep dive session with me. The link is in the show note things below, and you can book in directly and we can get started ASAP. Otherwise, I will see you next week, and thank you for watching.